Hello all, this is Barbara Mann from Your Empowered You, and welcome to our video on conducting productive and effective meetings. So in this short video, we're going to talk about why do we even really need to have meetings. I know we all love those meetings, so why do we even need to have meetings? What are some of the benefits of actually having a very good meeting? Not all of them are good, but what are the benefits of having a great and productive meeting? And what are some of those key elements for really having effective meetings? Because if they're done right, meetings can be very, very productive, effective, inspiring, all those sorts of goodies. So why do we even need to have meetings? Well, they're used to convey, hopefully, very important information. You got to have meetings to talk about change management. You got to have meetings to talk about the performance of an operation. You got to have meetings to acknowledge people. I mean, these are great settings to acknowledge coworkers, acknowledge the operation, acknowledge the individual contributors, acknowledge a team. So they're great for acknowledgement purposes. They're also great for collaborative efforts. So if you want to obtain different types of viewpoints and different perspectives, you obviously need to have everyone together to bring those viewpoints together. It's great to have meetings for feedback, so you can hear in real time what are people's feedback to, say, a proposal that's being introduced or some change management initiative, things of that nature. You know, what is the real-time feedback in person or done via video, but what is that feedback? So those are some good things on why we need meetings. And it's also really good to be able to see people, to hear people, because, you know, you can pick up on nonverbal cues. So if you don't have meetings and you're just relying on, you know, emails as your form of communication, you don't pick up on those visual cues, that nonverbal communication, and really hearing people's inflections, what they look like. I mean, there's all kinds of communication that's going on without saying anything. So when you're in that environment, you can see, you can pick up on if people are confused, if people are upset, if people are agreeing. You can see all these things, and it really helps to avoid any kind of, say, misunderstandings, because you're there being able to explain whatever, you know, is being conveyed. So you have a chance to clarify and to avoid misunderstandings. And it also is a great way for inclusion. So sometimes meetings, you know, maybe you're having one in a room, but you can also, you know, hook up to webcams and have webcams to feel that inclusion if you have remote workers. So they're great for that sort of inclusion, to make sure as many people as possible are being communicated, say the change management, or are being included on their ideas and their feedback. So it's great for inclusion. So, you know, some of those benefits of meetings is that people like to be informed. I mean, one of the biggest issues with operations, with teams, with offices, is that employees don't feel like they know what's going on. So employees like to be informed. Whether it's good or it's bad, they want the information. Employees also want their voices heard. So meetings are an arena to allow your voice to be heard. Hopefully your operation allows for people to voice their concerns in an open forum. So if so, you know, people like to know that they are able to express themselves. And they love to be part of that decision-making process. Everybody likes to be part of the decision. It's really, really good for an operation to have as many people involved in the decision-making process as possible, because then you all have skin in the game and you're all part of this decision, and there's give and take, and so there's buy-in and all those wonderful things. And then also, you know, finally, some of the benefits of a meeting is people like to be, or they like to see others acknowledged. It's a way to also get everybody together, that they're a team, they've accomplished this great goal. You know, individual contributors can be acknowledged. So it's a great way to really get that team bonding going. And, you know, sometimes with meetings there may be disagreements, but if you can get through those different disagreements in a meeting setting, and really come up with compromise, and everybody's voice being heard, they're very powerful in terms of forming those important bonds that are needed in any kind of operation. So there are some key elements to make sure your meetings are, productive, they're effective, they're not just a big snooze fest, you're actually getting things accomplished. But the first thing you need to ask yourself is, do you need the meeting? Everybody hates meetings. One of the things that people think are a big fat waste of time are meetings. So, avoiding a meeting as much as possible is the best thing ever. So if you can do it in another forum, if you can do a quick stand-up type of little meeting versus a formal meeting, if you can say it via, an email or some other communication means, do that. That's the best thing. But, obviously you're not going to be able to avoid every type of meeting. Keep your meetings to a maximum of 1 hour. Oh my gosh, you go over an hour, and hey, I've been guilty of this myself when I've led meetings. If they go over an hour, you've lost your audience. Everybody is just burned out. They're off thinking about how they got to get back to work. So maximum of 1 hour, and if you can keep them shorter, that's even better. Some of these things are obvious that I'm going to talk about, but sending invites, I know that sounds obvious, but make sure you send electronic invites, especially in the work environment. If it's in a actual meeting room or if it's a virtual meeting room, make sure that all the invites are set appropriately and all the equipment is set up so that people can tie in if you're in a remote type of work environment. Prepare the agenda and other necessary docs. It's always good for people to see what you're going to obviously talk about so they can have it on their mind, or just kind of open their mind to whatever's going to be discussed. And I would advise having some sort of shared drive to allow others to add to that agenda or maybe make some comments ahead of your meeting. And that way they're much more productive and they're much more focused. So people know, what you're talking about, and maybe they've added a comment on what else can be discussed during that meeting. So some sort of shared drive that allows others to see before that meeting is advantageous. But if you don't have that, having an agenda and sending it out ahead of time, or at least passing it out in the meeting is one of the best practices that you can have, or any other necessary documents that you need for the group to review before the meeting. When you open up a meeting, you always want to advise, okay, why are we meeting? What are your expectations that you're setting out for the meeting, and what are those goals? You really want to understand that, hey, the goal of the meeting is that we want to, come up with a solution for XYZ. So you want to make sure that people know why they're there, what your expectations are, and what are the ultimate goals before they leave that room. Set those goals of what you want to accomplish. That way it keeps it very focused for the individuals who are participating. Which brings us up to the next point. Encourage participation. So you don't want to have a meeting where everyone's just a bump on the log and you're leading it. That's not necessarily good, unless that's the kind of meeting I guess you're leading. But, you want to make sure you're asking questions of the group, asking for their input. There are people who may be quiet. They may be processing this information. Doesn't mean they're not engaged. It means that they're processing, the information. Allow them to do that. But if you have also remote employees who are connected in via webcams or whatever, make sure that you are including them and having them participate as well. So a lot of times when if you're on a call, you have a call-in group. Make sure you're asking for their participation as well. It's very easy for us to forget about people who aren't necessarily in the room. So make sure you keep kind of mindful that you may have those remote employees that need to participate as well. You really want to keep a meeting make sure it's focused and it's on schedule. So this is really where you need like the leader or facilitator to keep it on point and avoid meetings going in the weeds, because they can go into the weeds. So if you talk about this and you're off talking about XYZ, doesn't mean that XYZ doesn't need to be talked about. It's just that this may not be the right forum to be discussed, and just make sure you table that to follow up later. But it really takes some discipline to keep a meeting on point and to avoid those weeds. So I can't stress that enough, because they'll get off into the weeds. You need someone to steer it back, steer it on point, because again, you're trying to stay focused and on schedule, because you want to be respectful of people's time. Another key item is that verify expectations are clear for everyone. So, maybe you have some follow-up that people need to ensure is done by, in a week or 2 weeks or the next meeting, whatever that might be. But make sure that the assigned tasks are clear for those that have takeaways, and that there's a clear sort of time frame, and okay, Johnny, you're going to do this, da, 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 da. That way there's no confusion after you leave the meeting. Do not assume that everybody knows what they need to do. Just having a summary of what everyone's assigned to do is the best thing right in the meeting, so there's no confusion. Another point, have some fun and have a laugh. And these are especially if your meetings are a big rah-rah fest. My God, have some fun and have a laugh. That is the fastest way to really kind of bond with the group, is to have a laugh, have some fun, loosen the bun, a little bit, and, get everyone sort of kind of loosened up. Those are always the best kinds of meetings. To get your mind open. You're able to discuss, heavier issues, maybe that require, a lot of thinking, but having fun and having a laugh is pretty darn important. So after your meeting, make sure you thank everyone for their time. Everyone's got their job to do. They're taking time away to attend this meeting. So make sure you thank everyone for their time. It's showing, obviously respect for their time. So thank everyone. And one of the key points that I don't see as much, I think is darn important, is sending minutes at the end of a meeting. The minutes should include, who participated, what were the topics, what were some of those takeaways and assigned tasks, along with the timelines, and then also if there needs to be a next meeting. But the minutes are important. That way we avoid confusion. Maybe people said, oh, we also talked about such and such, or they may have a question. It sparks clarification. So send minutes. And I'm not saying if you're in an office meeting where it's a big rah-rah fest, you don't need to send minutes on that, obviously. Talking about, minutes for meetings that have some meat and potatoes. You're talking about a change management issue, or you're talking about how you're going to handle particular particular process improvement, whatever the case may be. But make sure you send minutes on some of those bigger ticket items. And if there's any kind of takeaways or questions that have been posed to, say, a leader or someone else in the group, let the group know when the answer has been obtained. So the communication is key. So you've been in those meetings where someone says, well, what about such and such? And someone says, well, let me follow up on that. Well, make sure, number one, you follow up on it, and number two, you communicate it quickly. Communication is key. It is darn important. So the last thing that people want to think is that their question wasn't an important one, and it just went off into the black void, the black hole, and nothing happened to it. So make sure if there's takeaways or questions, get the answers, or does it require, a task group or whatever the case may be to investigate further. So communication is key. So let's wrap this up in a bow. So on your meetings, number one, do you really need it? If you don't need it, don't have the meeting. Don't have it. People don't really like meetings. They don't like it. So do you really need it? If you need it, then have it. Keep it short and sweet, less than an hour, having a clear agenda so that people know it's being discussed beforehand. Make sure there are clear expectations and goals of meetings. You don't want it to just be some sort of talk fest. You want to have expectations, specific goals. If it's just a brainstorming, that's the goal. But if it's something that you want specific, we're going to decide, make sure that's done by the end of the meeting. Active participation. You always want to have people participating in those meetings, so it's not a big snooze fest bore, where people are falling asleep. You want to make sure people are participating in their meetings. Follow up on takeaways. There will be takeaways, especially on meatier type of meetings. Make sure there's follow-up and communication on those takeaways. Make sure you thank everyone for their time. Be respectful of everybody's time. You're taking them away from their desk, so make sure you thank everyone. Send the minutes so that it provides additional clarification of what was talked about, who's doing what, What's the time frame? Things of that nature. And last but not least, have fun during the meeting. You know, the best meetings are the ones where, you know, they're jovial, you're having some fun, they're still productive, but you can really loosen the bun and have that fun. Nothing wrong with having fun and being a little jovial, you know, during a meeting. So as long as you don't have it just be a total laugh fest and nothing gets done, you don't want that. But loosen it up is good for everybody who's participating. So I hope you enjoyed our short video on conducting effective and productive meetings. Thank you for attending, and for additional resources or to schedule a session with me, please visit my website at www.yourimpoweredyou.com, or you can email me at bman@yourimpoweredyou.com, or you can call me at 916-633-2555. And I thank you very much and have a very empowered day.